of Yoga.
Welcome to the Institute for Personal Development, Kriya Yoga Ashram, where total consciousness is the new frontier.
Kriya Yoga is union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices to initiate this process.
Good morning. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Choi, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of the Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Good morning, Swami. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good today. How about you?
I'm doing great today, too. Thanks for asking. And we'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Today on The Voice of Yoga, we will talk about establishing clear distinctions between mental material energy and the invisible, intangible omnipresence of spirit, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Listen as we discuss the operations of the divine creation. Concealed by the mental material illusion is the trickster. In this podcast, we will explore fear as the defense mechanism for the false sense of self and faith as now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And that's from Hebrews 11:1. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. We are talking consciousness. Join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul and be free. So the title of today's episode is Fear and Faith as Obstructions. I wonder if we can talk about fear first. And I know there's an acronym for fear, which is false experienced as real. What else can you tell us about it?
Well, to label fear as an obstruction may seem more obvious than faith. But sin means missing the mark, and in divine science, a miss is as good as a mile. Belief in matter and mortal mind must be given up for belief in spirit. What we believe in becomes a factor, as well as how we think, because divine law only functions in divine life. It's helpful to know karmic law can be perceived as the love of God, not letting anyone accept anything less than the perfection of being. So all problems are a signal we're in the wrong self. Rumi said it this way: the world's existence is not in the world. End of quote. Herb Fitch said it this way: we are to know we are Christ not in the world, while appearing as form in the world. End of quote. And Mrs. Eddy wrote, there is no life, truth, intelligence, nor substance in matter. End of quote. And to summarize it, all I can think of is what Paul wrote: ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. I know at first it becomes very difficult to think there is no life, truth, intelligence, or substance in matter. But the more you drill down with this, and the more you understand the possibility that we are Christ, not in the world, and that this world is just a reflection. In the same way, when you look in a mirror, the image that's looking back at you, you know there's no life, truth, intelligence, or substance in that reflection. As we begin to develop the faculty that enables us to perceive this truth, it becomes more and more apparent what these people were saying is the truth.
When Rumi said the world's existence is not in the world, is he talking about the world that we are perceiving with our five senses?
I can't talk for Rumi, but I can assume that's exactly what he's talking about. Just like when Jesus says, I have overcome the world. To start to understand this world is the lie. It's not the truth. Because as Jesus says, the truth will make you free. When we know the truth, we become free of the belief in a finite, temporary, mortal sense of existence.
Swami, you said earlier, all problems are a signal that we are in the wrong self. Now, the wrong self, I'm assuming, means our mortal self. So if we have problems, that means that we are externalizing something that's inside of us. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, we see what isn't here. We're looking at a mental image about the divine creation. It's not the truth. And the only thing that gives it the appearance of being a sense of existence is our belief in it. Spirit is the only self-existent power in the universe. And so the mental material concept, which is a hypnotic state, is driven by belief. And it's a belief in two powers, which violates the divine law, which is the power of one. And so as you experiment with this, you start to see why you can't be both. Because in the light of divine truth, it dissolves the belief in a false sense of existence. In the same way, light dispels darkness. Darkness is not an opposing power to light. It's the absence of light. Error is not an opposing power to truth. It's the absence of truth. And so this whole war on evil was exactly what Jesus came to tell us. Resist not evil. Put up your sword. What we're trying to do is come out of the belief there is something other than the perfection of being.
To help us understand how faith can also be an obstruction, we have some verses here from the book of James, and I'm going to read them. The first one is from James 2:17. Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. End of the verse. This next one's from James 2:20. But do you want to know, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead? And this next one from James 2:26. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. End of that verse.
It's very easy to be tricked by the appearances. In Revelations, where it says, looks like a lamb, speaks like a dragon, Mary Baker Eddy called the wolf in sheep's clothing. The idea of doing things with human will and personal sense, all your good intentions are under what's called karmic law. For every action, there is an equal and an opposite reaction. With belief and thought, we can change finite bad to finite good. And I think for most of us, as long as we're getting more of the pleasures and profits of the human experience, we're happy. And if that's where you are, then that's all well and good. But for those of us that want to know the truth that makes us free, you're going to have to overcome the belief in anything other than the divine perfection of being. Because divine law only functions in divine life. Why Mary Baker Eddy insisted on the principle and the rule. The principle being the divine creation is all, and it's omnipresent absolute goodness. It's the only reality. The rule is oneness. We must understand ourselves spiritually. And there's only one life, one spirit, one being, and it's perfect. Once you understand this, then to live under the government of divine protection, all you really have to do is know yourself in the way that you're known. But in order to do that, you have to give up the false sense of existence, the mental material illusion.
Swami, what do you think James is trying to tell us when he says faith without works is dead also?
Well, I think it comes back to this idea of, well, what is life? Just like Paul said, ye are dead and your life is hid with Christ in God. What we're calling life, this mental material illusion, isn't life. Life is eternal, perfect, changeless, under the government of self-existent power. Belief is what drives the mental material concept. And so James says faith without works is a clue as far as we can believe in anything. And for most of us, we do. But belief in the divine creation reveals the divine creation. This is the progression that happens. Belief becomes faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. Your belief in the divine principle must start to demonstrate, and your faith will graduate to understanding. But if you are not demonstrating your faith in the divine principle, you have to check and see what it is that you are believing in. Because truth in consciousness resolves things into thoughts and exchanges the objects of sense for the divine idea. And to continue with the idea of faith being an obstruction, we have something here from Mary Baker Eddy in a paper she wrote called Principle and Practice.
And I'll read it. The sick, like drowning men, catch at whatever drifts towards them. The sick are told by a faith scientist, I can heal you, for God is all and you are well, since God creates neither sin, sickness, nor death. Such statements result in the sick either being healed by their faith in what you tell them, which heals only as a drug would heal through belief, or in no effect whatever. If the faith healer succeeds in kindling the belief of the patient in his own recovery, the practitioner will have performed a faith cure, which he mistakenly pronounces Christian Science. In this very manner, some students of Christian Science have accepted, through faith, a divine principle, God as their Savior, but they have not understood this principle sufficiently well to fulfill the scriptural command, Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel, heal the sick. It is the healer's understanding of the operation of the divine principle and his application thereof which heals the sick, just as it is one's understanding of the principle of mathematics which enables him to demonstrate its rules. Christian Science is not a faith cure, and unless human faith be distinguished from scientific healing, Christian Science will again be lost from the practice of religion as it was soon after the period of our great masters' scientific teaching and practice. Preaching without practice of the divine principle of man's being has not, in 1900 years, resulted in demonstrating this principle. Preaching without the truthful and consistent practice of your statements will destroy the success of Christian Science. End of this passage. Swami, what would you like us to get from what I just read by Mary Baker Eddy?
Well, the thing I really like about Mary Baker Eddy and Christian Science, the way she presents it, is she puts healing on the table. The idea of being spiritual today is very obscure. Spiritual is a category you can dispatch information into, which really means it requires no further explanation. And so you can cloak anything under the term of spiritual. But when you put healing on the table, you give it a litmus test. And things like James says, faith without works is dead. And yet, when Mary Baker Eddy had her discovery and she brought it to the other denominations of Christianity, they threw her out of the building because it requires you to be accountable. And for me, this is exactly what I was looking for. A way of proving what I'm calling the divine principle is demonstrable. And the more you understand that, the less you just accept things academically and intellectually. You need the principle and the rule. And a lot of what we brought to the table with Kriya Yoga has been so complementary to the teachings of Mary Baker Eddy, because one of the things that she was worried about is they would lose her discovery. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't know anybody today who is demonstrating divine law with scientific certainty.
We're going to pause right here to hear a word from our sponsor. Listeners, we'll be back with you in just a few moments. Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance at Institute for Personal Development Incorporated, Kriya Yoga Ashram, is a complete program for anyone looking to demonstrate divine law with scientific certainty. To demonstrate divine law, conscious awareness of divine truth is necessary. The spiritual advance starts with the divine creation, beginning with the principle, life is perfect, resting in the knowledge life is eternal, formless, changeless, and absolute good. The practitioner retreats from the obstructions, which are the veiling conditions of the mortal mind, then rests in the knowledge of the divine principle, thus revealing the precept, consciousness is experience. Visit the website www.ipdtransform.com and begin living under spiritual truth. Welcome back. For those who are just joining us, you're listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. Swami, if faith without works is dead, how do we eliminate death?
Yeah, the miracle is awaiting the realization of the force within that eliminates death. And that force is spirit, the invisible, intangible omnipresence, which is the one perfect life everywhere, always. And the physics of spirituality is like attracts like. Only spirit begets spirit. Why it is said, ask in my name. My name means my likeness. We must know ourselves in the way that we are known, which is spirit, and not form. We're not a body that has a mind and perchance a soul. We are spirit functioning through a mind and a body. And we can't be both. You can't be mental, material, and spiritual. So how does one put off the old man? And like we say, born of spirit is the standard way of initiating the progressive developmental process. Start by mastering the three modes of mortal thought. Then resolve the physical body into a mental image capable of receiving divine inspiration. We can't put an infinite mind in a finite form. So separate identity from the body and rise into the body of Christ, or the man, the bull, the lion, and the eagle. The image created by the 7 personal planets, the 12 signs of the zodiac, to turn away from the form and link it to the mind. Then train the mind to serve spirit. It's a progression. It's not something you just declare, I'm spiritual. It's a process.
We have some quotes from Joel Goldsmith's The Contemplative Life, Chapter 7, and we got these posts from Al Denninger's site, and I'm going to read the one from June 8th. What is this grace of which we speak? It cannot be defined. It is not something earned or won. It has to be felt. The power of grace is the power of the invisible. It is something we bring into expression by the withdrawal of fear of and faith in man whose breath is in his nostrils. And then when there is no longer fear or faith, the power of grace can come into expression and bring forth everything and everyone needed in our experience. End of the quote. Swami, your thoughts here?
Yeah, this idea of being strong enough to walk a solitary path and sensitive enough to hear the call. From my understanding, there's a lot of preparatory work that has to be in place for us to allay the fear. We must be born again of spirit. That's not just a declaration. You literally have to work with your physical body and change the pattern of the body where it is no longer looking for matter and mind for validation, and you now change the reward circuits in the brain so that you are joined with the invisible, intangible omnipresence. And as spirit, there's no death in spirit. That means there's none of the things that lead to death in spirit. But everything is going to be dependent upon, just like what Joel says here, is your faith in man whose breath is in his nostrils. We also have to change our identity from mental material to spiritual in order to get the desired outcome.
I will read the June 9th post. Except to students who have studied for a long while, it is not possible to explain grace, because grace actually is the operation of a law that can function only in the consciousness of those who have put up the sword and who have also laid aside their faith in man, in documents, in unions, or in unitedness. For some, this is too difficult because they must know the how, the why, and the wherefore of everything, and it is hopeless to expect these persons to understand anything as intangible as grace until they have come to a place of rising above that which can be explained through reason. End of the passage. Swami, your thoughts here?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons, again, why I really like Kriya Yoga and this idea of a path of knowledge. What Mary Baker Eddy called educating thought up to spiritual apprehension. Once you begin to understand that there are these two streams of life, there is a lower stream of sense, which is the reflection, and the upper stream of spirit, which is the original. One is invisible and intangible to corporeal sense, and so we have to walk by faith in order to navigate through it initially until we develop the faculty that enables us to perceive it. But in order to lower the hurdle without lowering the bar, you build a mental landscape that will support the divine ideas so that you don't get involved in a contradiction. If God is all and all is good, who are you? Who am I? That's the lie. That's noumena and phenomena. Noumena is how things are, perfect, whole, complete. Phenomena is the mental material concept. And so you tell the truth about the truth and you tell the truth about the lie. But the whole thing falls apart when you mistake the impermanent for the permanent. When you think you're spiritual and you're still drawing from mental material illusion.
I'm going to read the June 10th post. I know less about the workings of the Spirit than perhaps anybody else in the world because I know nothing about it. I only know this: it works. However it works when there is no fear and even when there is no faith, when there is not even faith in right thinking, not even faith in holding a right thought, not even faith that God can do something, when there is just no fear and no faith, but only the realization of a divine grace. Man has blocked grace from operating because of his fears and his faith. He fears effect, or he has faith in effect, and that is the one thing that blocks the operation of the invisible in his experience. End of the passage. So I'm interested to get your take on the statement that he makes. Man has blocked grace from operating because of his fears and his faith.
Well, I think it goes even deeper than that. It's the belief we are a finite mortal being. And the fear is the defense mechanism for that belief. And then again, the idea of the things we believe in exacerbate the issue until eventually it becomes a huge hurdle to overcome. Rather than trying to figure out how to lower the hurdle, most of us try and lower the bar. You don't have to rebirth your body and spirit. You don't have to purify and perfect yourself physically and mentally. And then we justify that by taking healing off the table. And so for those interested in demonstrating divine law with scientific certainty, these are the things we talk about. Know yourself spiritually. Understand the physics of spirituality. Like attracts like. If you don't know yourself to be spirit, you will be asking, trying, striving, struggling, seeking, planning. But that will interfere with divine law because divine law functions in silence and stillness. Divine law isn't trying. Nothing that has to be added to or taken away. You rest in the perfection of being. In that silence and stillness, we let divine mind reveal itself.
I'll read the last post from June 11th. You can watch how this functions because if you lose only a little of your faith in human reliances, men, churches, or political parties, if you lose only a little fear of some alien ideology, and if you lose only a little faith in the people and things in which you have heretofore had faith and rest in the invisible, you will see right from the beginning how some measure of change begins to take place in your experience. So it sounds like he's telling us we can get a little bit further on in our spiritual path if we release fear and faith.
Having an athletic background, for me, offense is your best defense. Rather than focusing on what I'm not trying to do, I really like to focus on what am I doing? What am I trying to do? I am trying to love God. In order for me to love God, I must know God. And then I must link myself with what is invisible and intangible to corporeal sense. And once you have internalized spirit as your symbol for validation, and you're drawing from the omnipresent spirit, no longer attached to particles and waves, matter and mind, then your faith in that divine principle will take you in. Spirit is a demonstrable principle, and it testifies with deeds, not words. Purifying the mind-body complex and internalizing spirit, the invisible, intangible, omnipresent principle, as a new symbol for validation. This event eliminates fear by eliminating death. Spirit is the inner truth, and upon discovery dissolves all false beliefs.
Swami, thank you for your insights for today's episode, Fear and Faith as Obstructions. Listeners, be sure to visit the website, www.ipdtransform.com. On any of the pages, as you scroll down, you'll see several buttons there that you could press that would further your understanding. Swami, any final thoughts about today's podcast?
Well, I would like to encourage people to join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul and be free. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to our program, The Voice of Yoga. This is Lisa Winton, along with Swami Jayananda, signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga realization. Namaste.